Well, happy new moon, everyone. Thank you for coming through. Some of the main things that I'm noticing where the aspects are concerned are the conjunction between the sun and the moon right now. Very, very enchanted energies are kind of like, what's the word I want to use? It's such a feather light energy. They're finding their way into the narrative. So if there are areas where you have been suffering emotionally, could be on and off, could be long running, this is being alleviated now. And some of it can be really without you fully noticing. And then you're kind of suddenly in the healing realization of the energy. There's a lot of support coming in from the divine overall, cosmically speaking. Mars is in a spiritual degree now. It's in a spiritual decadent, the last decadent. So it is in Virgo, and it's in 21 degrees, which is a Jupiterian degree. Whatever you may have felt you didn't have time to get done, oh my goodness, it's not done yet, I didn't get this done by now. Jupiter's energy is helping you to look at the bigger picture. So energies are energies, and it doesn't mean necessarily that this is going to happen overnight, although it very well could. Uranus is in Gemini right now, Pluto's in Aquarius, like things can actually happen quickly. But the generalized point here is to help you kind of to pry your hands off the steering wheel, kind of, and help you to get into an alignment where you're not confined in time, but you're able to be within the observer of yourself, and you're able to see the possibilities and step away from a situation, even if it's just for 2-3 seconds, minutes, however long it's going to take you to realign yourself with like where really I want to say where you're always going to be aligned, which is cosmically, which is a bigger thing than time. Time has a purpose, and I respect time, but there's a bigger picture than that. And when we get too caught up in the idea that we're confined by time and that everything's going to fall apart if we don't get something done by a certain time, or we perceive that we missed the mark on something, and so it's over. When we go into those sorts of heavy assumptions, I want to say, it really can bring us into a very low resonance, into a sadness. It can affect our sense of self-worth, our sense of value. It can affect our energy levels and the aspect of us that would actually just move forward. With Mars being in Virgo, it can be the little details. And this may have been frustrating for up until this point, right? For this transit of Mars in Virgo, where got to get this little thing done, got to get that little thing done. Irritants could come from detail-oriented things, or things that are being asked of you that are just so nitpicky and so splitting of the hairs that it's absolutely nonsensical. What is happening now with these energies is really having the bird's eye view. And if you feel like you've been confined in something that's kind of demanding too much of your mental energy, you can step back and you can look at the larger picture. I feel with this sort of thing, vision journaling is going to be super helpful. The balancing energy to a Virgo energy that's not in, what do I want to say, like a supportive harmonic, right, would be the Piscean energy. So you can align with the divine, you can align with the cosmos, you can align with the calm spaces within. The part of you that knows this is just play that we're experiencing on Earth, and it can get very serious at times, but we're guaranteed, right, that this is a temporary journey, that we're passing through Earth temporarily. So it's something to keep in mind and let go and get into a state of relaxation and realize you're not defined by the last scene that you appeared in. I think it's going to be really, or the last 3 scenes for that matter. Also, Venus right now is squaring Mars, and Venus's energy, sorry y'all, there's some cars in the background, I do apologize, I can't do much about that. Venus is currently in a Capricorn degree, a Saturnian degree, and it's also in the sign of Gemini. I feel like this is affecting the Mars and Virgo energy with more of a sober look, right, at what requires attention and what doesn't. Gemini energy in general is going to favor freedom it's going to fade unless it's like super impacted by something else, or like conjunct, right? And with there are certain planets I would think could bring non-freedom energy, but I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to say just the point, right? Like Gemini is about progress, freedom, experience. It's in a Saturnian degree right now, but Venus is the one wearing this sign and this sign's energy. So I feel like the structure of something is coming together, and it's coming together the more you relax, the more you're not being like watching the water boil. Like when you're not doing that, it's coming together super beautifully, and it can be surprising to you when you realize, oh, I put this amount of work in and it's actually paying off. It's because you're relaxing. It's because you're taking your eye off of it. So when you're able to take your eye off of these things, I do feel in many cases there's more of a crystalline energy to what you've been working on for like 8 years or more. And this doesn't have to be just any one thing. This can be over the course of time, something you've been adding to. It can be your very own self, the work of art that you are. But I think Venus's energy is influencing Mars to chill, and to kind of not to bring so much stress and pressure to the head, because Mars rules Aries, and that rules the head. Aries rules the head. But stepping back and breathing through it, because things are going to get done. Like in divine timing, they're going to get done when they need to get done, how they need to get done even. And stressing out over it is really only going to kind of cause you to overheat with Mars currently being in this sign. The sun has entered Leo, happy Leo season. And it's in 1 degree. That's an Aries degree. This can also tap into the Mars and Virgo energy because Mars actually rules Aries. But this degree is helping us to rise in selfhood and to rise in selfhood in touch with our heart. And this season's going to be really big on that. Looking past the egotistical narratives, looking past like the unnecessary warring aspects of things. Neptune is in Aries now. Saturn's also in Aries. There's an aspect that's beginning to settle into the collective of needing to look at the long range repercussions of certain actions, mindsets, and also looking to what is spiritually. What's the spiritual point? Like, what's the energy behind the action? That's what I want to say with Neptune and Aries. What's the energy behind the action? And I think it might seem like it's slowly coming under like the microscope of the collective, but I think like this has been in the works for some time, and we're just going to see more evidence of that people are in that sort of mind frame with things popping up, all over the collective until we realize that like a lot of people's minds are moving in that direction with the course of thought, as opposed to feeling frantic, going through time loops of scarcity, courting fear, dealing with fear, and going through like just old patterns of really self-sabotaging behaviors, or unfortunately behaviors of feeling for those who kind of fell into the trap of attempting to sabotage others, I guess, to try to get ahead or try to get their hands on something. But just the feeling of that would be just as empty because the action is not spiritually correct. So I think some people who are moving in that way don't always realize like it's really not the way, and it's not going to make whatever their pain is or their ailment, it's not really going to make it feel any better once the reality sets in of how they acquired what they acquired. So I think there's more, we could say, sanity starting to enter, into the collective. And I feel like there's a huge push to lead with the heart. There's a huge push to pay attention to what you need, to not overdo anything, to disallow anyone to disrespect your position, like where you are sitting with your dignity. That's a big, huge thing here. There was a lot of wild style energy and people truly acting like they forgot their home training and how to act. And I feel like there are massive corrections underway that are affecting that. to put things right in the collective. This new moon energy, as far as love is concerned, is going to have people being a little more scrutinizing of if they're single, of what they're getting involved with, whom they're getting involved with, what does the energy entail, what's being asked of them, like what's the agreement. I think that's going to be a bigger thing. So there could be kind of a wise observer stance, or being a little more cool in your demeanor, when you're getting to know people. So a lot of the impulsivity that some might expect to pop up. Mars is in Virgo, and Venus is in a Saturn degree at the kickoff of this new moon. So I don't really feel like it's going. I mean, some people have in their charts, they could have something that could counteract that, and they may behave a certain way. But collectively speaking, I think there's going to be a reserve taking place on a social level, at least for the next 3 to 7 weeks, and really looking at whom and what you are aligning your energy with, and also big time how it makes you feel. The moon is in a critical degree now, y'all. It's in the 29th degree of the sign of the scarab, aka Cancer. There could be dreams. They could be released dreams. It may or may not be fun dreams, but breakthroughs are possible if you can look at what these dreams are trying to say to you. I feel like these are it is a critical degree, and it's the last degree, right, before the moon goes into Leo. This is really speaking about what haven't you wanted to look at, and are you ready to look at it so that you can move beyond it. There's a lot of, I want to say, peaceful primal energy on a higher harmonic. It feels like warriors who fought the battle, right? Beings who fought the battles, who've been through the hardship. And, there is an experience to have after the battles. So this kind of energy, I think, is coming in a nurturing way and in a protective way. And also Pluto being in retrograde still, but being in the second degree of Aquarius, I think there are solutions beginning to take place that are going to make it easier for people to really move out of the way, super restrictive and completely unnecessary blockages to having a healthy income, to having, I think it might take just a little bit longer than the income thing, but having more optimal options for housing situations. I feel like that's underway, but there's been pushback, some kind of pushback, and I don't want to go too deep into the details and get off track with the energy, but there is an active effort that's coming in, ways to get past and get around what's been attempting to keep people in a squeeze. And I do think we're going to see the results of that, again, kind of popping up in the collective, things that are actually viable, things that actually work. And, it's mostly reasonable or very reasonable. All in all, I think, with the moon being in a critical degree, do take care with your feelings. If you need to rest. If you feel tired, that is valid. Take care of yourself. Some of what's happening right now, there's an overhaul taking place within, so that what has held you back from getting up to a higher level is what's held us back from getting up to a higher level of where we actually should be vibrating. This overhaul is making it possible for us to see, clearly what needs to be moved to the side, sidelined, filed, what is not the focal point, so you can focus on the road and get into the alignment you're actually meant to be in. And this is going to mean people who pop up and try to throw you off your schedule or try to throw you off at different times are going to be having a harder time doing that, or just not being able to do that at all. So, this, whatever hat is valid, right? Whether this is in the workplace or social life or whatever have you, there is a change coming to what you're going to allow to come in and throw off very important trains of thought that have to do with your breakthroughs for moving forward and breaking some very entrenched patterns, most more than likely generational patterns. It's a collective reading, so I do want to keep it more on the collective tip. And very quickly before I conclude, the part of fortune is in 16 degrees. It's in an emotional degree of Sagittarius. So there are emotional breakthroughs that can take place, very optimistic ones. Leave room open for that. I think it's going to be easier to see the well-meaningness that's coming from others increasingly. I'm not saying like today it's going to be that for everybody, but moving forward, it's going to be easier to kind of know who it's safe to connect with. And, you'll be getting better at like how far you connect, because some of us have had like just different trauma patterns to work through. But I feel like it's going to be easier in the collective for people to kind of show up for each other and just be in their humanity. And come out of all, we've dealt with a lot of psyops, we've dealt with a lot of craziness, and I think people are largely over it, and there's more of a higher resonance returning to how people interact with each other, and more of an awareness, right, of any given individual's own kind of primal responses, where they can say, okay, this is me bugging right now. I need to see what's triggering me. I need to figure out what's going on, instead of automatically seeking to project, on the other. And, your mileage may vary. Some people with very deep trauma wounds who develop certain sorts of disorders, I don't know that I can include them, right, in this collective message as the ones who would be handling it that way. But I mean, like, just generally speaking, people having more accountability for their emotional well-being, and moving a little more responsibly with their self-care, and moving a little more honestly with who they want to connect with and who they don't. And I think this is, over time, going to make a big, huge difference in how society is run, because I think people will be paying much more attention to what is placed in front of them, and they'll be looking at the details, and they'll be looking at what whomever is attempting to feed them, and there will be more of a proactiveness in the societal process. And I think this is not what was anticipated by those who wanted to be social engineers and really bring trouble into society. But I do think we're going to end up having a much more informed populace over time, who look at the details and who don't just automatically say yes or just go with whatever is said. Some people might be a little more, what's the word I want to look for here? I'm having some challenges with the words right now, but like, some people might be like moving like skeptics. But I feel like we may need that right now, Anywho, this is what's coming up, y'all. I feel like just take good care of yourselves, get your big fluffy blankets and be good to your inner child. I think it's going to be hugely important, and look to what you need. That this new moon is all about that. And don't be afraid to be honest about that. I hope y'all found this helpful. I'm going to turn the mic over to Natou, and thank you for listening.